In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, over 1.3 million people immigrated from Sweden to the U.S. While some chose to move out west and settle the land, some remained in the cities. Of the cities they settled in, more of them ended up in Chicago than any other.
As most people do when they settle a new place, they build something familiar. For the Swedes, it was a suburb on the outskirts of the city called Andersonville.
That's where we find ourselves now, on Clark Street in Chicago, Illinois. Across from the Swedish American Museum, and facing a water tower that's painted to resemble the Swedish flag, is a neon herring holding a martini.
We find ourselves at the legendary Simon's Tavern. For at least 78 years, Simon's has sat at the same address, at 5210 North Clark Street in Chicago. It's actually been there longer, as we'll find out, just in a slightly different location and under another name.
To learn about its extensive history, we caught up with Simon's owner, Scott Martin, who had planned on taking his daughters to the shore for the day, but showed up to give us a tour on the place instead.
Thanks, Scott.
So this is Simon Lundberg. He was the guy who founded this business. He immigrated to America from Småland, Sweden, in the early 1900s. He joined the American forces during the First World War, asked to become a citizen of the country. War ended. He went to Colorado, worked for the railroad, saving his money, always in hopes of having his own business in the States someday. Around 1922, he heard other people from Småland and parts of Sweden were moving to this area of Chicago. So with the money he saved, he came and opened up a little cafe down on Berwyn Street, which was called the Berwyn Food Shop. This happens to also be prohibition, and a couple of gentlemen came in one day and sat at the counter and ordered coffee. As the coffee arose, one of the guys took something out of his coat, poured it into the coffee, and slid the coffee cup to Simon, suggesting he try it. So Simon took the coffee, went, "Ooh, that's some pretty good whiskey." And the guy said, "We can get you a regular supply. We'll put word on the street. Nobody will bother you." So all of a sudden, as word got around the area, you could get whiskey over at the Berwyn Food Shop. Simon's business started to boom. By 1926, he'd made enough money to purchase this building here, move in upstairs with his wife and his only child, Roy Lundberg.
According to rumors, Simon was buying from the Chicago outfit, Al Capone's group. Whether or not that's true, what is known is that at one point, Simon figured out that the whiskey by itself was more profitable than the whiskey and coffee, and so did what any 1920s entrepreneur would do. He opened up a speakeasy.
This is the room that was the speakeasy. You can see it's the only part of the basement with a ceiling in it.
Right.
And you see how they plastered over the brick?
Yeah.
And rosemaling is a Scandinavian stenciled artwork, where you blend watercolors or acrylics in stencil. But you can see the very simple decoration that was down here. All right, so just that, and you can see how it runs along the wall over here.
Right. The first time Scott was down here was in 1994, when Simon's son, Roy, was showing him around in the hopes of selling the place to Scott. Needless to say, Scott was a bit surprised.
So now as I'm down here, I'm going like, Roy, what was it like? And you got to imagine he was probably about 8 or 9 years old at the time. No, yeah, probably about 8 or 9 years old. So he goes, well, there was just, I believe, 5 tables down here with 4 chairs. And the whiskey was in the bottles along the wall in boxes. And the men were, well, when I would come down before school, and already he had me like, when I would come down before school, so that means they're down here drinking. He says the men were drinking the whiskey and smoking tobacco and talking about business and politics and such things. And I go, oh man, I mean, like really? That's what he goes, well, it was more fun when I came down before bed to say goodnight to my father. And I'm thinking, he's been down here for like 12 or 15 hours, right? I mean, doing business. Right. And he says the men were still drinking the whiskey and smoking tobacco, but now they were just speaking about women.
Another artifact left from Simon Lundberg's tenure as owner is the huge canvas mural surrounding the walls opposite the bar. This mural is a result of the love for the outdoors by Simon and many of his customers.
So a lot of these guys by the 40s had bought some property up north, up in Michigan, and they would go hunting. The last weekend of the deer hunting season, they would have a big party called the Deer Hunters Ball, and that is the title of this mural. This was painted by an artist named Sig Olson. He was also from Småland. He's the same guy who painted Simon's portrait, and he was a good friend of Simon. So in 1949, the men and women who were up there, right, and the kids, they had this big party called the Deer Hunters Ball, and somebody took a photograph. In 1950, Sig Olson got a hold of the photo and took it home, and in the course of 6 years in his basement painted this and presented it to the bar as a gift in 1956.
Of particular interest to visitors is the fact that there are 5 hidden animals in the mural, and if you can find them all, you get to play Viking for the night.
Kind of a fun thing that the Sig did, which we had talked about, was he hid some animals within the mural, right? You had known about that. Yeah. So they're not abstract, they're actually there. recently somebody has found all 5 of them, which is about, in my 17 years of owning the bar, probably about 23 or 24 people. Upon finding all 5, as long as you do it without going, oh, there's that one, you know, like in giving it away to somebody else. Right. But if you do it on your own, then you get to wear our Viking helmet and hold our axe, and we'll feed you shots of aquavit, which is Swedish potato vodka flavor with a little caraway and anise. Okay. And we'll help get you home too. All right, so they are in easiest to hardest to find order: a cat, an owl, a bear cub, and rabbit being the hardest one. And like this, like around Amy Lundberg's neck here, it's not like an abstract rabbit like Roger Rabbit. Right. It's a real rabbit. Okay.
After Prohibition mercifully ended, Simon opened this bar full-time. And when he did, he wanted to give his customers something different.
Visitors might note a few of the touches that Simon included to make his working-class friends feel like they were drinking with Chicago's richest.
At that time, as he started construction of the bar, his idea is, because in the media, there's a whole bunch of attention being paid to a ship being built in France called the Normandy. And this was going to be the first 3-stack ship, the most grandiose ship of its era. So Simon decides, I'm going to build a bar that'll feel like one on the Normandy. Obviously, people in this community would never be able to afford to go on the Normandy, but he could then come in here and kind of see what the rich people experience. So this is the Normandy etched in the mirrors above each register here. You see the portholes in the back bar. All the woodwork is cut curved and round, so giving it a nautical feel. And all the way, even the drink rail here, you can see it's a 60-foot long mahogany bar built out of 3 pieces of wood. It's all original. So you have a 35-foot piece, a 20-foot piece, and the 5-foot piece at the end here. So now the reason, like I said, was people could come in here and kind of feel like the rich people.
In addition to being a speakeasy and being molded after one of the most luxurious ships of all time, Simon's Tavern also served as a neighborhood bank.
If we remember 1929, the stock market crashed, the banks had lost everybody's money. 1934 is here, people are getting jobs again, but people have such distrust for the banks, they're cashing their check in the neighborhood, butcher shops, shoemakers, those kinds of places. But those places were also taking a percentage of the paycheck for the risk of cashing it. Well, Simon, being grateful to the people of the community who had been buying whiskey and his coffee, he said, you come here on Friday, cash your check, I'll have a free sandwich for you, and I won't take none of your money. So this is the bank that he built over here. This is all bulletproof for that era. This door weighs over 300 pounds. It is lined with 3 panes of bulletproof glass and 12-gauge steel. And you could see from the side the glass, and then you could feel the weight of the door without, don't get your finger caught in there though, because it'll just cut it. Cow. And as we go into here, you can see the whole outside wall to the bar is also lined with 12-gauge steel. So standing inside here, he was completely safe. He opened up the bar May of 34, and by December of 1934 was cashing over $14,000 worth of people's payroll checks every Friday in this bar. Holy cow. So if you compare that to today's money, it's well over $500,000. Yeah. So he came.
Despite enough history to earn it a spot on the historic register, Simon's Tavern is still just a neighborhood watering hole, and a damn good one. And it was time for us to experience that part of it.
Are you ready for that shot of Malort?
Scott wanted us to try a drink popular in many Scandinavian countries called aquavit, a potato vodka very lightly flavored with caraway and anise. The particular brand he sells is Linja, made in Norway, which he's really not happy with, but he has to live with.
Okay.
Oh, Brian, here, they're you.
There's got to be a toast.
Skål!
Skål.
Helan Gor, to all of life. So cheers, and to all of life, to the best of life.
Helan Gor.
Skål.
That's good.
Get a little beef bouillon in there, some mustard. You might have like a cornbread.
Yeah, a little corned beef sandwich.
Corned beef
right,
sandwich.
a Reuben.
Really
a Reuben too. Yeah.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's good.
Interesting liquor.
That is really good. Wow. That is so much better than that stuff.
Yeah.
A particular drink that Simon's is known for is glogg. It's a traditional Swedish spiced hot wine drink, traditionally served during holiday feast.
When I bought this bar, Roy Lundberg sold to me November 94, and that December I'd cooked about 70 gallons of glogg. Now we cook over 2,000 gallons of glogg a winter. It's made 15 gallons at a time. Port wine is the base of glogg. In a big 15-gallon 1944 U.S. military product back there, I put 3 gallons of water, cook raisin, cinnamon stick, clove, cardamom seed, orange peel, and almond in that for a full hour on high heat with 2 burners going till it boils, and then gets down to about a gallon. Then about 13 gallons of port wine goes in with some sugar, and then that cooks for another 2 hours. Then it's covered up and cooled down overnight. And then in the morning, brandy's poured into it, and then 2 other secrets I put into there. So that served, I can't, nice try again. So was $1 for the sign and now that, okay. You got to have me start drinking this stuff first, man.
Get you a glass.
That's right, yeah, a glass. Get me a tumbler. Time it's served about 4 ounces, served hot with some of the drunken raisins that are used in the cooking process, all right? And then fresh slivered almonds. We serve it with a peppercorn cookie, which is a ginger snap, a very thin ginger snap. And the bar is really well known for that. Come Thanksgiving Eve, I put out about 100 pounds of turkey for the people who come here, and then they have a lot of kids who can't afford to get home, so they have real Thanksgiving dinner here. Wow. And it's also the night that we introduce our new batch of glogg for the holiday season.
We were there well before they make their holiday batch, but we were still in luck. About 4 years ago, Scott got the idea to make glogg for the summer, and so he bought a margarita machine, played around with the recipe, and voila, glogg slushies.
It's just like glogg. It's just a little more refreshing because when it's hot out. It works, man. It works well.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
The glogg, even as a slushie, has powerful tones of cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg. I can't wait to come back here over the holidays to try the real stuff. Look, there's just too much history here to fit into this video. Like the classic and iconic logo of the bar, a play on the Scandinavian love of the pickled herring. Get it? It's a herring drinking a martini. Getting pickled.
Or the myriad of pictures in the back that show Simon Lundberg's life in black and white. The ghost story that relates to the Hunter's Ball mural across from the bar. And on and on.
You've got to just come down here yourself to find out this history firsthand. Come on down, have a glogg, and ask Scott for the nickel tour.